I love doing programs for the Bloomingdale Library because it is my home library. I seem like the worse I looked, the higher the chance that I'll run into Christina at the library. And I've been there a lot because I'm teaching YA this term and I'm in there constantly getting books. But tonight I'm so excited to talk to you all about vintage holiday cookies and candies. Those of you who are new to my programs, I was a librarian for 20 years at the Schaumburg Township Library. I ran teen programs and worked at the Reader's Advisory Desk. And I have a passion for mid-century recipes, and I'll talk about why in a little bit. So I have 2,000 vintage cookbooks, and a lot of them are pamphlets. We're able to get around our house quite easily. They don't take up tons of room. Mainly 3 huge bookcases is where I have a lot of them. And I also collect handwritten recipes, which we'll talk about. So I had a blog for 13 years, a blog that actually disappeared during COVID when the company that owned the server went belly up. So I am recreating some of it. I was able to find some of the content, but it's mainly from my collection. And I had given these talks, and this is now the beginning of the 11th year of my giving talks about gems from my cookbooks. Now, I do tend to make fun of a lot of the vintage recipes and the trends, but in a nostalgic way. Like, think of how we think about bell bottoms. It's nice. We laugh about the fact that we used to wear those. We all enjoyed them. Those of us who were around back in the day, would we want to wear them today? Probably not. So the same kind of thing. So tonight we're going to talk about vintage holiday cookies and candies. And why don't we go ahead and get started? So this is my grandma Curtin, and she was an immigrant from Ireland, and she left me with about 7 handwritten recipes. My cousins have a couple too. We've recently discovered this. And she had, of the handwritten recipes, one is for beef brisket for 50, one is for a really strong Irish coffee, and 2 are for kolachkis among the 7. So that's pretty funny. She had her priorities right. So she loved kolachkis. She cooked everything from memory, and that is one of the reasons I think I collect the cookbooks. I wanted to remember both grandmas who did everything from memory. So there I have pictures of kolachkis, and she also made fruitcake for all the neighbors. With dried fruit, not the candied fruit. And she started after Halloween and laced it heavily with brandy. We don't have a written recipe, but what I did a few years ago is got fruitcake. I have brandy. I got fruitcake from all over the country and had my mom taste it. And the one that she said was the most like her mom's was Gethsemane Farms. And that one reeked of brandy. Really, it was a fire hazard. I have tried to recreate my grandma's, and I did okay. It was pretty good, but it's not something I'd want to do all the time. I mean, it starts from Halloween. But my mom remembers that one year the fruitcakes went bad, and of course there was no money to replace them when she was growing up on the west side of Chicago. Both of her parents worked. Her mom worked my grandma worked at the Brock's Candy Factory, the 3 to 11 shift, and they try to make ends meet for their 3 girls. So that was my mom's memory of Christmas, is about those fruitcakes. Here's my grandma Alessio. I kept my name when I got married. That's a photo from my wedding in 1995, which is 25 years ago this year. And she loved pizzelles, and she would make them. And I actually have a pizzelle maker, and mine do not turn out quite that nice. Usually when I'm giving this talk, I serve treats also on plates. And I always get the pizzelles from Caputo's. So if you're in the area, they have amazing ones in their cookie aisle, like lemon flavored, vanilla, chocolate. They've got a lot of fun ones. But she also didn't write anything down. And I always say that she taught me that bad food is still good memories. I know I can never get the grammar quite right on that one, but she turned 89 7 times, at least. She just didn't want to turn 90. Her birthday was on Christmas. So every year she turned 89 again. And we all bought her the panettone that she liked to eat. She turned 89 every year. And she was still trying to make her gravy in her apartment, even when she was 90, whatever, and couldn't see. And she was still trying to make it for me and my siblings and my cousin. And we got such a kick out of that. It was terrible. I don't know what she was putting in it. She just couldn't see. But we had such a nice memory of her still trying to cook for us at that age. So that's where I get that bad food is good memories. But let's talk about cookies and candies. So how about cookie trends and exchanges? Well, we're probably not having cookie exchanges this year, but we certainly could exchange recipes or exchange like pictures of cookies that we're making this year. That, hey, I made this recipe. Look at how it turned out for me, or look at how I decorated this one. book on the left, the Betty Crocker's Cookie Book, is one of the best references for cookies that I know of. And I believe you can get it from the library. They've had it now in about a dozen different versions, and I'm pretty sure I have them all. And it's pretty much a reference book on cookies. And a lot of the ones that you can think of for the holidays have recipes there. Most of the time, the ones that win like the Tribune contest have their basis in this book, and then maybe people have expanded on them or passed it down and tried something different. But what I really like, and this is the 1963 version of it, is that they break down all the decades by what cookie was the most popular. It says in the 20s and 30s, brownies were really popular. So that was 100 years ago, which is crazy to think about. And here brownies are still popular. In the 40s, 20s and 30s with brownies, 30s and 40s, molasses crinkles. Well, that makes sense because in the 40s, they didn't have as much access to sugar with the rationing. So maybe they were trying different things. And then it moves on to chocolate chips. And then caramel refrigerator cookies in the 50s. As refrigerator things became more popular, people were getting the bigger, fancier refrigerators. They knew you could put dough in there, slice it up when people would come over and have cookies ready to go. Holiday fruit drops in the 50s. I don't think so. I think they got that one wrong, but maybe I'm wrong. Then they had slated peanut crisps and bonbon cookies, which went well at cocktail parties, and that was in the 60s. And then it said closer to today, they had cookie exchanges. And it says people have exchanged strudel and fruitcake since around pioneer days, like my grandma. But here are some of the cookies that show in Betty Crocker's, and the lower right is actually a form of a kolachki. It's the thumbprint cookies. It has candied pineapples. And you do see some spritz wreaths in the middle and some fun cutout cookies for the holidays. Some of my favorite cookbooks are the company Christmas cookie booklets. See a lot of these from the 50s and 60s where they asked employees or employees' family members to provide recipes. These are some of the best ones out there. And the ones that really seem to go for like 28 or 30 bucks, which is odd for a pamphlet cookbook of like 20 recipes, the ones from Western Electric Power, which was in this area. And I particularly like this one where they use dowels for all the food styling in the pictures. You can see they didn't really worry about scale, though. Look at the one on the right. It's like Mrs. Beasley and Teacher Barbie. And she's pointing at this, and there's a little Corningware dish on there. I mean, those are kind of funny. So I really like the church cookbooks, the hand recipes, and these little company ones because they are tested out. In a lot of cases, the recipes in the regular cookbooks maybe are a little fancier than what people maybe were making or enjoying, or they tried to come up with something clever and new, and maybe it didn't always work. But I included in one of the packets of recipes a chocolate spritz, and that's from this book. It's hard to find spritz recipes that don't get too dry, and I like that one. How about cookies as gifts? This is from Good Housekeeping's Book of Cookies, 1958. I like there's lots of chapters on how to pack and send cookies, especially during wartime, how to send them to people, which is amazing to think about that. And this one shows all kinds of different holidays to send cookies for. And now this, and then there's this kind of roundup of different ways you can do it. There's some fun ideas on here. Now, I don't think we're all going to make that cloth gingerbread house and put cookies in it and send it off to someone. Not sure that would be safe this year. I like the idea they have of wrapping cookies on a cookie sheet to someone for a gift. I could see that would be a good shower gift, or, maybe in another year. But maybe there is something you could put on a cookie sheet as a gift. And then other ways they've wrapped it up there. Go over to the right, how someone wrote the recipe on the wrapping paper. I love that idea. If you don't have the right paper or something, try regular paper or a plain colored paper, and then write the recipe on it so that somebody can have that to enjoy too. And other fun ways to tie up cookies to ship. In the lower right, they said hobo style, which is not something we would see in a cookbook today. It says with peanut butter cookies in foil, tie them in a handkerchief. And how are you going to pack that with the spoon in there? That is a little bit crazy. Somebody would appreciate the cookies, no doubt, but that is an odd way to pack them. And the tradition of making cookies in groups, and I hear a lot of this, or at least I have in other years, where people would get together and spend a whole day making a favorite ethnic cookie or pierogies or something. Those are memories that can't be replaced, right? That we all get together, we make things. In my kitchen, sometimes they don't turn out, and that becomes part of our story. I always say I'm more adventurous than skilled at cooking, but I got a kick out of this picture from Better Homes and Gardens Homemade Cookies, 1975. It said, "Let the whole family join in the fun of Christmas preparations. Have each individual personalized giant-sized Christmas card cookies with messages to give as holiday greetings." You know, I don't think the whole family is in this picture. I only see, the women folk in their best clothes and hairdo there in the back. But I got a kick out of how the big cookies are actual holiday cards. That's a fun way to do it. And I like how they're showing the kid decorations on there. They're not perfect. It's the kid doing it, which is just as nice. Although I'm pretty sure she wouldn't be able to keep doing it in that gorgeous, her cute outfit without getting some kind of decoration on there. Okay, from Wilton's Book of Candy, 1981, the history of candies and things you can make at the holidays and give people. One of these is a lot more labor intensive than the other. So on the left, we've got marzipan that you can give as gifts. I think the equivalent of this today would be like Fimo clay. People could make little figures and bake them, like you do with crafts. And then, but the marzipan that you would actually eat, look at those gorgeous little figures with the little donuts and the angels holding the candles. And then on the right, we have the kind of fast and easy. That is more my style of making, but still fun. You could certainly do those with young people. Make the popcorn ball tree or the snowman. And one of my favorite parts is the caption under this talks about the health food bars in the front there. I don't think those are healthy. I bet they're fun to make, though, and dip in whatever that pink frosting is. The old tradition, the old way of making fudge, was pretty tough. You use the candy thermometer. You have to stand right there. You make sure that it gets to a certain stage, and then you stir it for a long time, and then you have to bring it down, and then you have to beat it vigorously. This is a lot of process, and you can see the recipe even there is hard. It's cute the way they have them wrapped. I totally wouldn't want to eat one of those after the way it's wrapped. I mean, I would put like at least saran on there. So, but you get the idea of why fudge is so expensive sometimes. Like, at the Dells or in any like Long Grove, is because the process to make it. And it gets a lot easier in the 1950s. They come up with some new ways to make it. 250 ways to make candy has an entire section on divinity fudge, which was very popular before the 1950s. And they have it in seafoam flavors. There's pralines, and they have marzipan and fondant in that one too. And you can see there's marzipan fruits and vegetables at the top of that picture too. So fudge gets a lot easier a little bit later, and I put the recipe here. And this is the recipe you see in every church cookbook now, and a lot of handwritten ones. Fabulous fudge, 5-minute fudge. People discovered that condensed milk or marshmallow cream could be used to make fudge, and it was a whole lot easier. You didn't have to stir it for half an hour and let it get to particular temperatures and worry about what stage it was in and then beat it. No, you pretty much throw it in the pot, heat it up, add a few more things, and it's done, right? And now you're getting a sense of why not everything works in my kitchen. But here's one of the recipes I have for fabulous fudge, and that should be in your packets. Now, this one has both condensed milk and marshmallow cream, which is probably fairly rich, but good. Okay, how about candy canes? So from foodtimeline.org, the candy cane began as a simple white stick of sugar for children to eat. There was no cane shape or stripes to speak of. While it is uncertain where the first canes originated, it is clear that by the mid-17th century, if not earlier, its use had already become widespread across Europe. They were made by confectioners who had to pull, cut, and twist or bend the sugar sticks by hand, making it a time-intensive process. So that had to be done locally. And they first started being manufactured in the 1920s when a man named Bob McCormick in Albany, Georgia, first started making them as a Christmas treat. And so then the machine was invented in the 50s by Bob's brother-in-law. Well, I'm sure it grew to be such a process. Now, the rumor is that they made them in the hook shape to like a shepherd's crook. as part of the holiday things. But think about how candy canes have evolved and how the decorations and everything is related to that. You see a candy cane, you think holidays. But what used to be really popular was the ribbon form of it too. I was once invited downtown to the Culinary Institute to help them sort out, and I quote, a weird box of donations. I'm not sure how they got my name, but I was thrilled. I went down there. I told them which ones I thought were valuable and which weren't, and which ones might be useful for their collection. And then they treated me to this amazing lunch by their students. I can't even remember when I've had a feast like that. It was amazing, and I hope they will offer that again in the future. But when we were leaving, there was a display of odd gadgets that they were hoping the students could identify that nobody knew. And of course, I knew what this one was. I said, oh, that's a ribbon candy machine. So the warm candy would be processed through this. The crank, those like weird spindly things would rotate when the crank was turned, and it would give it like a crimped edge, and you would have the ribbon candy. Very hard to find now. They used to have it in Brock's little candies, and I used to serve it at shows even, but you don't see as much this year. Everything is streamlined this year, of course. So F.B. Washburn, founded in 1856, is known as the oldest candy maker in the U.S. and gets credit for creating a number of hard candies, including ribbon candy. So the company was struggling during the Depression, and then one of them came up with the ribbon candy thing. And so this is a picture of the one I found at Kendall College. That's where I went. The 1886 Champion Candy Crimper. So twisting and pulling cooling candy until it has a satiny finish, and then you run it through the crimper. That is a lot of work. And that is the reason we probably don't see as much of the ribbon candy. It's like the fudge, right? All right. So how about this one? There are some candies that we are used to seeing at the holidays every year. And this one was one of my mother's favorites that I always tried to track down. You can still find these, but for a while, Brock's had some other classics. Of course, my mother loves Brock's because her mom worked there, and she used to see a lot of them when she was younger. And so we know that in 1904 that Emil Brock opened his, quote, Palace of Sweets at North Avenue and Town Street in Chicago. And the company grew quickly, and they were producing more than 25 tons a week by 1911 and 1,000 tons a week by 1918. So they survived the Depression, they survived the wars, and you think of all those things. The bulk candy market. Now they're kind of split into different locations. They still have some operations in Chicago. But for a while, the classic peppermints had different variations. And then they were trying to expand into different flavors. One year, they came out with a bright red version of this that was cinnamon flavored. And that wasn't that long ago. That was like a couple of years ago. That was nasty. I don't know if any of you had that one. You know, for research purposes, I always have to taste all these, or I make my mom do it. And that one was terrible. They had swirled wintergreen ones, which I liked, but nobody else I knew did. So they have continued with the Lone Tree, and they're not always easy on the teeth, but the peppermint nougat. And then here is from McCall's Book of Merry Eating, a picture of sugar plums to make your own. If you've ever wondered what a sugar plum is, this isn't it. Whoever put this in the cookbook did no research, which, as you know, if you've attended my programs, is a pet peeve of mine. Now, yes, I do quote from the vintage cookbooks, and they are not always accurate, but I will say that freely. So sugar plums are a candied nut. That is all it was. People dreaming of candy nuts, that's what it is, the sugar plums. And I'm always amused when somebody comes out with a new version of the sugar plum. For a while there, Jelly Belly had this, like, it was the size of a 50-cent piece, if you recall those. A Jelly Belly that size, and it tasted like a plum, and they called that sugar plum, and those also not very good. I think they were pretty much made to decorate gingerbread houses. But then there's this, which is like fruit and liqueur. And look at the big cocktail there. There are so many things that are hard to understand about this picture. So they said that this preserved plums in red wine sauce would be your sugar plum gift. Not if you want a gift back. I wouldn't have, what's happening? Okay. So how about gumdrops? Where did those come from? Percy Truesdale invented gumdrops in 1801. And there is a holiday, National Gumdrop Day, which is February 15th. Now, if you get all that chocolate on February 14th, or at least you go to the half price Valentine's Day candy sale on the 15th, who is eating the gumdrops? I don't know, but it's maybe the kickoff for their big season, which is Easter. One of the most amusing things about vintage cookbooks is what I call gumdrop art. I have a diagram to make a Halloween cat out of one gumdrop. You are supposed to cut it into like 7 unequal pieces, and I've tried it. There isn't a knife sharp enough to make those cuts so you have like the body parts of a cat and the ears and the tail. That's ridiculous. The wreath is cute here, right? That's something we could all make. But on the right is Cherry Candle Cake from Better Homes and Gardens Holiday Cookbook. I've shown this one a lot for a lot of reasons. One, I love the cake separator. In my home, if I don't have that put away in the drawer, that gets used as somebody's hair comb. They love the cake cutter. That, of course, the name is escaping me right at this moment, but it works really well on those tall chiffon-y kind of cakes that were big in the 50s. It's you just put it in the cake and with the tines there, and you kind of shake it loose, and you end up with slices. I know it seems crazy, but it does work. But a knife also works, so I don't know. And then the layers of this one are lime jello and crushed pineapple. You drain the crushed pineapple, you put it in the lime jello before it's completely hardened. When it is hardened, like the next morning, you like whip it with a mixer. I'm serious, this works. And then you use it as a filling. I find it much easier to put over a 9x13 cake. It tastes really good, it's moist, it works for the holidays or St. Patrick's Day. But the funny thing about this picture is you see those bows? You're supposed to take a rolling pin and roll out a gumdrop and tie it in a bow. And this recipe is in a cookbook I have for quick cakes on the go. Okay, no. Just so many things wrong with that. Just get Twizzlers or licorice and tie them in a bow, or you know what, skip the bows. Rolling a gumdrop art, kind of crazy. And here we have some more kind of crazy art, but you know, I still like it. This is a charming picture. Now, I'm pretty sure none of us are having open houses this year, but this is a photo from Betty Crocker's Good and Easy Cookbook, 1954. It says, holiday open house days are happy days, times you wish to share with family, neighbors, and friends. It is one of the easiest and most pleasant ways to have guests drop in. And here's a possible setting. Now they've glued gumdrops onto the candles as a decoration, which is kind of funny. And again, something a kid could do. And then it's got other holiday treats. And you notice there that we have fruitcake, of course, and various holiday cookies, including the candied nuts. So they did have a form of the sugar plum. And look in the center, down at the bottom, a little to the left of center, those are trees made out of Kix cereal, kind of like Rice Krispie treats. So they have molded them into trees and stuck them in an apple as another treat. How would you eat that? Still cute, but I was just curious. So if you're making candies is another thing people like to do at the holidays especially, and it suggests in the Better Homes and Gardens 1966 Cookies and Candies, it says popular was the turtle cookies or the turtle candies in the lower right. I think most people are going to recognize these. They were commonly known as a bake-off finalist in 1952. That's right, they didn't win, even though nobody remembers the winning thing. I, at the moment, can't even pull it to mind, but the turtle candies that people would make by melting. And you've seen variations of this. People have done pretzels and Rolos. So all variations, derivatives of that original turtle candy. Another one they have here are the pastel mint wafers, which in this case were made from frosting mix, but a lot of times people make with cream cheese and like a ton of confectioner's sugar, so much that they turn these into these like firm little mints that are quite good, but you know, obviously very sweet, but popular in regional areas. I have a friend from Indiana who told me she has never attended a family party where somebody hasn't made the pastel mints. So I thought that was kind of funny. How about fondant? Fondant today is like artistic work on cakes. And I have a friend who makes beautiful cakes out of fondant. She might be in this show in the audience, but fondant was a little bit different in the vintage cookbooks. You'll see what I mean. So we have a product cookbook for Illinois Power. It says electrical gifts spell more value for everyone. Doesn't that sound appetizing, the electrical gifts? I do love their artwork on there too. It's kind of funny. And then they have used fondant type frosting for cookies you intend to pack. But they also use fondant mixed with chocolate chips as a cookie in itself. So it's kind of a firmer, probably has more sugar in it version of, and that would be super sweet. So different ways to make things. But I got a kick out of the Illinois Power Cookbook. Now, coconut twigs are going to be in your packet. These are super, super easy. But I also got a kick out of the arrangement on the left. From 1969, the 250 ways to make candy says bedazzle mom and pop on Christmas Day with coconut coffee fudge, date nut delights, and coconut twigs. The coconut twigs are essentially melted chocolate, a cup of coconuts, and you like mix these things together. Now I've seen these done with like the hard noodles, different fun ways to make the coconut balls and the twigs, but this one is particularly easy, and that one is in your packet. And how about the Moreau Cookbook? We're going to talk about Moreau. I have the Moreau spritz machine, the cookie cutter thing, but the cookbook it came with is well known. And every version I've seen of this at antique shops or on eBay or whatever has been well loved. I mean, some cookbooks you get in pristine condition, you know, those were not the favorites. You want the ones with the stains and the comments like Bob hated this one. Those are the cookbooks that are well loved and have some good recipes. 1949, it says many good cooks take pride in their cookie recipe collections and enjoy keeping the cookie jar well filled with a variety of their favorites. You can get variety in shapes and individual decorations as well in the recipe itself if you have just a little special equipment. Well, they were trying to sell equipment, right? That was their point. But look at the cute little decorations on there. So elaborate. Each one of those is so different. I get a kick out of those. Cookie press, there it is. My Moreau one is on the right, and you see I've got some bridge suits, like the spade is on there, as well as a Christmas tree and a pinwheel. And the one on the left is the one my mother had when I was little. And I found it again on eBay because she had the audacity to give it to my sister, who doesn't know what she's doing. If she knows where that is, I'd be surprised. But that's a side note. I'm firmly hoping that my niece will know what to do with it soon. But after I tracked down another version of it, because I like the size of it, I also found a lot more of the die cutter things. So really, that was fine. When we were younger, my sister and I always made blue snowmen. We dyed the dough like Smurf blue, like super bright, and we made these snowmen. And I thought everybody made those with the cookie presses. So when I started doing these talks 11 years ago, I was like, oh, you know, when you make the snowmens or whatever, and everybody looked at me blankly. Everybody seems to have their own favorite thing that they like to make out of this. And honestly, I can't recommend the snowmen. They almost always burnt because they were so small and delicate. I did better with the poinsettias, and you can see some of those. They might not look fabulous, but they tasted okay. My grandma Alessio used the row with the jagged teeth and turn those into like ribbon and wreaths. That was her favorite. Everybody has their own way to use the cookie press. And this is from Dominos Sugar Cookbook 1962. And it says, what are your favorite spritz shapes? Alternate flavors of chocolate with cocoa, almond, or peppermint extract, or black walnut with finely chopped nuts. Really like the Domino Sugar Cookbook because the illustrations are hilarious. And there is one of somebody firing the spritz gun. There's crazy illustrations. There's always people diving into the mixes or, you know, climbing snowflake. I think I have another one in this show. We'll get back to it. But it was one of those cases, and this happened all the time at the library, where somebody would find something weird in the donations and put it on my desk. At one point, I had 8 copies of an Elvis cookbook, and I couldn't put it back in the donations because it would end up back on my desk. And this happened. I tested this out. But the spritz is one of the Domino Sugar Cookbook is one of those that ended up on my thing. So here is another recipe for spritz. Not the one I included in your packet, though. I have favorite ones of those. How about vintage gingerbread? Okay, so gingerbread has actually been around since the 1700s, if you can believe it. And this kind of makes sense because I think it's like a derivative of spice cake and carrot cake and all of those. I mean, as soon as they could find spices and they were able to form some kind of bread, and they were starting to make like spice cakes and moving on from there, or spice cookies. The UK takes credit for the start of gingerbread thin cookie versions and of the houses. In the vintage cookbooks, I see all kinds of cookie houses. People took a lot of pride. They were showy. And many of the recipes in the vintage cookbooks and the advice on how to keep your house, this was it. It was a pride of place, the home. And so you can see in the Farm Journal cookbook on the left from the 60s, there is a farm, a gingerbread farm. And I actually have someone from one of my shows made this and sent me a picture. And this is not her picture, but this is the one from the cookbook. But I got a kick out of it. Look at the knife decorations on the roof and the pretzels and this. And then on the right is from the Betty Crocker Cookie Cookbook again, and it's got different ways to make that for showers. They suggest making gingerbread cookies for baby showers and decorating them, which I thought was kind of a fun idea too. I don't get why they divide some of the cookies in thirds though. What would happen in my home is that somebody would just take 3, right? If something was divided like that. But really cute decorations. In the lower right is a product cookbook for butter, and that's actually from the 30s. And nobody had extra money to spend on a lot of decorations and things. But even with some kind of simple decorations there, that looks amazing. You're thinking, okay, that's not simple. No, but the stuff they used on it was not expensive or elaborate, and they still made a really cute house out of it. Now, if you think like about Disney World and how they have shops made out of gingerbread and huge gingerbread decorations, including a gingerbread carousel. This is a picture from the Floridian, which is one of their most expensive resorts. They have an actual store made out of gingerbread. And when I was last there at Christmas time, which is probably 5 or 6 years ago, we went to this store and I was able to buy a gingerbread ornament there for $12. And that's probably cheap for Disney standards today, but I was curious about their house. And that one was made with 1,050 pounds of honey, imagine, 600 pounds of powdered sugar, 800 pounds of flour, 140 pints of egg whites, and 180 pounds of apricot glaze. And so, of course, a huge gingerbread house like that in Disney World also has to be a shop because we can't have a square foot of space down there that isn't making money for them. I mean, as we know, I'm completely charmed by all of it and I love everything Disney, but you know, let's be real. It is a profit-making enterprise, possibly not this year, but my brother was actually at Disney last week down there for their food and wine festival. He had bought tickets a year ago. And said the decorations are going up. At the Contemporary Resort, you find like a tree with gingerbread people decorated in the costumes of all kinds of different countries and lands, which is also kind of fun. Speaking of other cultures, vintage cookbooks wanted to include the cookies from all different cultures, but they didn't necessarily always get it right, but sometimes the recipes were amazing. So it suggested you make this basket with all of these different things for your neighbors. And the little like boxes that say Merry Christmas and for the Smiths are cookies. So it's another version of the cookie card. Well, I like the coffee cake in the middle is actually the like 2 biscuits rolled up with candies in the candied cherries in the middle of it. Some of those can be made and into like a pull apart bread. I'm not describing it well, you get the idea. But I was kind of interested in the Springerle, which is a German type of, if I'm not mistaken, and sometimes I do mix up these names when I'm giving these shows if I'm nervous, but the one where you have the rolling pin with different shapes embedded in it. And somebody at the library once was telling me they had a special one with their family name on it. And they made clay forms out of it and gave it to all the family members. So instead of making cookies, they rolled out clay things and ornaments for all the family members, which I thought was fantastic. I don't know if any of you get the King Arthur catalog, but I just saw a Springerle rolling pin in there for $200. So these are popular. And we will talk about some of these other kind of ethnic cookies and things coming up. Let's talk about Hanukkah. I don't know if any of you are celebrating Hanukkah. And of course, we're going to celebrate the miracle of the 8 days from the oil in the lantern. The lantern was able to keep going for 8 days, even though it was out of oil. So the recipes are tied into oil, including the potato pancakes. What isn't a Hanukkah recipe is arugula, but I find it year round and a lot of it around Hanukkah in the local grocery stores. I think they just, they know it's kind of related to Jewish holidays, and so they put it out. It's another case of not everyone doing research, but in that case, everybody likes arugula, and there really is no problem offering it year round. Somebody somebody commented this year Hanukkah celebrates that toilet paper will last us 8 days. We all have learned to stretch our resources this year for sure. But once in my blog, I put a recipe for potato pancakes, and I had a mystery writer friend talk about hers, and she made them with frozen shredded potatoes. And there was like a war among people about the right way to do this and the only way to make them. And I don't know if you're a big potato pancake fan. I am. They all taste pretty good. So what about Kwanzaa? If you celebrate, and we do in my home because my boys are African American, and I was determined to do this right when we adopted them, and so I wanted to make Benny cakes, and they're delicious thin Benny cake wafers. And this is a picture in a vintage cookbook, and it referred to them as what's the name they put here? Something that plantation cookies or something. And, I don't think the people who lived in the house were making the cookies, if you know what I mean. So Benny cakes, though, is a traditional Kwanzaa food. And I tried to make them. And I will say that they turned out delicious. But for whatever reason, mine turned into a whole sheet on the cookie. We do better at this now. But I had to break it like peanut brittle so that I had shards of cookie. And they were light and tasty and very good. But all right, so this is a picture of the Christmas tea. It says no time to have an evening party, and these are the things you should serve. And it suggests that you have this party the day after Thanksgiving, right? Because that's when we want to pull out a whole separate set of rich foods in our best china, pull it, maybe it's still out from Thanksgiving, and then you pull it out for the next day. Vintage cookbooks have recipes for 8 or 9 different holiday parties, including caroling parties, tree trimming parties. It was kind of fun. And while those parties may have existed, they don't need a whole separate elaborate menu, or, people who are already tired from going to all those parties are going to be exhausted. So even if you're having these at home, don't need a whole separate menu. So then we have the Feast of Santa Lucia. And Bishop Hill in Illinois is a little town, and they go all out for this festival. And usually it lasts a whole week. And I looked it up. They're still doing it this year. It's going to be right around, I think it's December 13th and 14th for them this year. It's only doing 2 days. And then the hot cross buns are the traditional food. But this whole town, they go crazy with the parades and the foods and the festivals. And this is another example of one of those kind of ethnic holidays that is much bigger in this country than it is in the country where it started from. Like St. Patrick's Day is much bigger here than it is in Ireland. My Irish cousins were always kind of mystified by the lengths that people, especially in the Chicago area, go to celebrate it. So here we have Santa Lucia, and the youngest daughter is to wear a crown of candles on her head and deliver cross buns for breakfast. And you also could have a pepper cracker cookie, which is a thin ginger cookie, and you break it on your hand with one finger and you press it in your palm. And the cookie is supposed to split in 3. And if it splits in 3, you will have good luck the following year. I used to do this with my teen board, and they would just keep breaking cookies until they had one that ended up in 3. So I don't know if that gave them good luck or not. They said it added luck each time. I thought, oh, okay. But St. Nicholas Day is gaining momentum in this country. It's where you put the shoes out to have treats put in them for the next day. And from Southern Heritage Cookie Jar Cookbook, it says speculas are part of the Dutch tradition celebrated December 5th in Holland. The night before, children leave carrots in their shoes for the saint's horse. In the morning, each child finds treats in place of the carrot. In evening, appear larger gifts at the end of a treasure hunt. Speculas, baked in people-shaped molds called bachelors and spinsters, are given to single friends. That's pretty rude, right? You only give a particular type of cookie to the single people? Happy holidays. No, I do get a kick out of this picture, though. So some traditions, again, that are changed in this country. And I know this one from working at the youth reference desk for years. I filled in for years at that desk, and they always had to hunt down these traditions at the holidays. The German pickle tradition, everyone who sells ornaments, says it's a tradition from Germany. You hide the pickle on the tree and everybody finds it. That's not real. It wasn't a real like fancy German tradition. I don't know where it came from. Like a lot of traditions, it probably has a seed in truth. Maybe it was something a few people did and they thought it was nice. But if you see very expensive glass pickle ornaments that somebody wants in their house to carry on the tradition, don't do it. It has to be other fun ways to celebrate. Oh, here's another picture from the Domino's Sugar Test Kitchen Cookbook. Here is them making the snowball cookies. And it says, wet snowballs before rolling white sugar. Oh, before rolling. White sugar is best. And I do love the illustrations. These are a version of the Mexican wedding cakes, the little cookies that come from the Las Posadas tradition at the holidays, where they had people touring, celebrating the trip to Bethlehem with Mary and Joseph and Jesus for that tradition. And then people, as part of that, would serve things at their home, including the Mexican wedding cake cookies. And then this version got changed a lot in the cookbooks, and you will see snowballs, which is a version of the Mexican wedding cakes. And snowballs, I've seen them so many different ways. Everybody seems to have their own way to make snowballs. Some of them do it with like peanut butter centers. Some of them have different, like it's a powdery, light cookie. I think that is the most traditional one. All different ways to do this. And I believe I put this one in your packet. And here are the rosettes. I know so many people can do these perfectly in the lower right-hand corner there, where you put the iron in the dough and then you fry it. And so many people can get these to turn out perfectly. I have a friend who can do these. I don't have the patience to do this, but they are delicious. And they are a tradition that comes from many different countries and ethnicities. The rosette, according to my cookbook, the Better Homes and Gardens Cookies and Candies, the rosette is a thin cookie-like deep fried pastry of Scandinavian origin. Rosettes are traditionally made during Christmas time. They are made using intricately designed irons. The iron is heated to a high temperature in oil, dipped in the batter, and re-immersed in the hot oil to create a crisp shell around the metal. I've also seen a version of this from Mexico. I have seen, it's also areas of Turkey and Malaysia claim the rosettes. You see different ways of doing that. A tradition in this area, the Maurice Lanell cookies. They're hard to find these now. For a while you were still able to order them, but I'm not sure that is still the case. The history of these, and the pinwheels, I mean, that some of these things are tied into memories, even for me, from the area. So Maurice Lanell grew up working at a small Swedish bakery in the north side of Chicago, northwest side. In 1937, when he struck out on his own, Maurice used this hands-on baking knowledge and many family recipes to produce his own cookie jar favorites. And those are his signatures. And so you're still able to find some of these. These are two of the most popular ones that he had, the raspberry jelly swirl and the pinwheel. And I love that the pinwheels, the edges of them were like hot pink sugar. Oh, great. Some of you said that you didn't get the recipes. You will. Christina will make sure. Also, I'm going to have my email at the end, and you can also contact me to get them. So other favorite Maurice Lanell cookies were their version of the wedding cake, nut-filled nougats, festive-shaped anise, gingerbread, and many more. Cream wafers and the cream horns are some other popular ones. And we see the cream wafers both on the left picture in the corner and on the right. These are from the Betty Crocker cookie book. And this is, and I've seen this on more than one poll, one of the most popular holiday cookies among people who, like to bake a lot. And I think it was polled in the Tribune and other places. So the cream wafers are made with, and they're kind of like whoopie pies, only lighter. There's no sugar in the actual dough of the cookie parts, but they are dipped in sugar then. And then there's like a light cream in the middle. And these were in that cookie book, but I often see them around Valentine's Day and other places. So not just around the holidays, but they have a rabid internet following, the cream wafers. Also, there are the cream horns. Why are the Maurice Lanell cookies hard to get now? I don't think the company is in business here as it was. You know what? I would have to look that up. I know recently I've had to order them. They're harder to get. It's like the Hostess that changed hands. Different people are producing them, and I am not sure you can even get some of the types of Maurice Lanell now. Sorry, I don't know that. That is a good question. So the cream horns, my son wanted to make the cream horns for Thanksgiving. We're doing a very scaled down version of it this year, but they're so hard. I would have to get the pizzelle maker out and then form them into horns and then do the cream. And I could, he might be able to pull that off. My younger son does short cooking videos for the Schaumburg Library. It's called Owen's Treat. He does these little segments and he wanted cookies that look like cornucopias. They're pretty tough. I couldn't find anything that quite worked. So the cream horns, and I know people who make these from different ethnicities, and they spend the whole day on them. And it's like a family recipe with a lot of different steps. So I'm always in admiration of folks who can make those. And then we have the Linzer cookies. You can actually buy a Pepperidge Farm version of the Linzer cookies. Oh, go ahead, Christina. That's probably the Maurice Lanell cookies she's put on there. So the Linzer cookies, Linz is from foodreference.com. Linz is the third largest city in Austria. It's also the home of Pez candy. It's hard to imagine those things coming from the same place. So, all right. Linz is the home of the Linzer tort. The Linzer tort is a tart made of rich buttery dough accentuated by almonds, lemon zest, and cinnamon. The tart is filled with black currant preserves. So it's a European Christmas pastry. And the Linzer tort is one of the oldest known tarts with a recipe discovered in an Austrian abbey from 1653. And then later they mass produced it and introduced it to America around 1856. And then they came up with the cookie version of it. So the dough is cut into cookies and two of them form a sandwich with the middle, the top one having a cutout. So you could see a jelly in the middle. So it went from this elaborate cake down to the tarts. Now we have the cookie over in this country. And these are not super easy to make. This is another one I see a lot for Valentine's Day too. The little Linzer cutters are kind of expensive. Certainly there are other ways to do this you can think of. But again, you can also buy these from Pepperidge Farm in very limited quantities around the holidays. Here are some popular Christmas window cookies. One on the left is a lot easier than the one on the right. One on the left I got from a church cookbook. It's pretty much melted chocolate chips. You put in the color, you add confectioner's sugar. It's been a while since I've made these. I just made it last year and I can't remember. That feels like 100 years ago, right? A year ago. But then you add the marshmallows. You have to be careful the marshmallows don't melt. You put them in a roll and put them in the fridge until they harden, roll it in confectioner's sugar, and then you slice them. And finding the colored marshmallows is often the hardest part of that. Those are pretty easy to make. Then on the right, those are made with melted Jolly Ranchers, which is a technique a lot of people use on gingerbread houses for windows. So those look wonderful, but imagine biting into that. Here are sugar cookies with melted Jolly Ranchers in the middle of it. All right. So the photo and the recipe from the 1970 Ladies' Home Journal Handbook of Holiday Cuisine. There's lots of good recipes in there. Look at those beautiful like Edelweiss cookies in the lower right of the scary doll picture. I always say that the doll looks scary because she drank some of the recipe for Santa's nightcap, which is right on the same page. And Santa's nightcap is a cup of gin, a cup of light rum, a quarter of a cup of lime juice, and a quarter of a cup of maple blended syrup. And I read that the first time. I was like, is that a joke? And my husband's like, we should try it. I was like, no way. That doll looks like she's had some of it. And also in front of her is the mincemeat tarts. And the picture is from my Southern Heritage Cookie Jar Cookbook. And it says, fanciful creatures find a wealth of mincemeat in this Armour and Company trade card, 1895. So this was... that's an ad for mincemeat. Not appealing. That ad does not hit the mark. How about Santa's Whiskers cookies? This is one that a lot of people know, and these are easy to make. They always turn out well for me, even. If they turn out well for me, you can do it too. So Better Homes and Gardens Homemade Cookies from 1975. It says, flecked with candied cherries. The cookies are rolled in coconut to resemble the jolly old man's beard. So you make them ahead of time and bake just before serving. And those have candied cherries in them, and you can get them in red or green. So it's one of those cookies where you have the refrigerator cookies. You've got the dough in like a log in your fridge, and you can slice them and bake them as you need them. And I particularly like these, even though I don't like to think of them as hairs on a beard. The coconut does make them very tasty. Ah, I have two of the same slide. Sorry about that. I was adding things to this show. I didn't realize I added two of the same. All right. Now we've got my family's favorite, very elegant, fancy cornflake cookies. Now I do, during normal years, participate in cookie exchanges, and a lot of people make beautiful, fine, artistic cookies, and those are popular, but I notice a lot of people like to eat these and often don't even wait till they get home from the exchange. There's something about the cornflake wreaths that people either remember making when they were younger, or just, it's just a shot of sugar is what these are. So this is just like Rice Krispie treats. It's butter, marshmallows. I've seen a version with maple syrup, cornflakes. You can put almonds. Some people add other things. We just add the red hots and go. In my family, this is my family's favorite holiday cookie. It makes no sense at all. It's a huge mess to make, right? Very hard to clean up that sticky marshmallow mixture with the cornflakes. It's just a holiday favorite. It makes no sense, just like a lot of these vintage recipes, but people still like them. Okay, and short and sweet, from Better Homes and Gardens Homemade Cookies Cookbook, 1975. You can tell I have a lot of cookies cookbook. Yeah, not many things in my collection are like eaten healthy or, fruit and vegetables. No, many of them are on the dessert side, but all right. So it says, Chewy Noels add a seasonal greeting to the holiday table. Change the message to fit the celebration with colorful decorator icing. It offers a quick and easy way to inscribe festive notes, dates, or names on cookbooks and party desserts. So I thought that was kind of fun to write something on the bar cookies. And I got a kick out of the decorations on this page too. So they wrote Noel. I don't know that mine would all turn out writing on all those. I don't do that well with the writing, the decorating, but I just thought it was a cute idea. Or you could put people's names on them, certainly as place. So, to make sure everybody's spaced out, here's your spot. Here's your cookie with your name on it. Okay. Have I covered all of your favorite cookies this evening? I was going fairly quickly. I know the library has another program using the Zoom in the not too distant future this evening, but I hope I covered a lot of your favorite cookies. Anybody else have questions? Some Maurice Lanell went out of business. They did, but they have a way that you can still get some of their cookies. Oh, 3-layer cookies. Yeah, those magic ones with the coconut and the chips and a layer of chocolate on top. Somebody always made those when I worked at the library, and everybody loved them. Those are always a favorite. And you can find different versions of them too. And most church cookbooks have them. Magic cookies, I've seen them referred to as. That's a good one. Peanut butter blossoms. That is a very interesting story. That is another finalist for the Pillsbury Bake Off. And they once came out with a greatest hits because they had all these recipes that came in second that people loved. And that was one of them. Peanut butter cookies with a chocolate chip in the center. It's a simple thing, but everybody likes those. A lot of people think they're a traditional holiday cookie. They're not. They were from the Bake Off, well loved, but they didn't come in first, which is hard to imagine. Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Pecan crescents. That is another one my grandma used to make. Again, mine do not always turn out looking the way they should, but beautiful, light, flaky, buttery cookies with confectioner's sugar on the outside. That is a good one. Anybody else have any that we missed? Are you going to try some of these? You'll have the recipes in your packet. Some easier than others, right? Sand buckles. I am not as familiar with those. I don't know what those are. They sound good. 5-minute fudge. Yes, we can never have enough of that 5-minute fudge. Oh yeah, and the peanut butter blossoms are the peanut butter cookies with the Hershey's Kiss. You can improve on that in many ways. Sand buckles sound wonderful. Ramona, I'm not sure what those are, if you don't mind describing them. Oh, cookies decorated like white mice. That would be cute with the little Mexican wedding cookie. I could see that. That's cute. That's better than cutting a gumdrop into 7 pieces to make a cat.
Mhm.
Oh, the dough put in the form pans. I think that's kind of like the springerly too, where you roll it um, and you get the impressions. Those are really popular right now too, but I couldn't believe the rolling pin with the forms in it was $200. Oh, Sam Buckles, thank you, Christina. Now I want to try those too. Oh, pepper news. Are those the little small round ones? Those are amazing. Oh, yes, I love those. And a lot of families have favorite recipes for that one. Not every family. Obviously, my family didn't make tons of cookies. We did make the wreaths and we did fight over the spritz machine, but we did not make anything fancy. We just, appreciated others' efforts. All right. Anybody else have go ahead, hon.
Hey, I just wanted to say hi. Thanks. This was fantastic. And it really does make me want to bake a bunch of cookies and take pictures. Because I know we can't share this year, but.
No, it might be the only way to do it. And I see a couple of you said they're going to try the recipe exchange. Let's do it, right? That is the way we can exchange or share without sharing the germs.
Exactly.
Oh, date balls. Oh, I love any date or fig cookies too. That sounds amazing. And such a rich history with those too.
All right. Oh, rum balls. I just saw that one.
Let's get the party started, Kathy.
Yeah.
We need the rum balls.
I was fascinated that sugar plums are not actually plums.
No, I know. Everybody tries to make that. Oh, Kathy says starting the party. We can do it. We have our Zoom cookie party going here. And thank you for looking at Maurice Lanell, Christina. Can you even get them?
You know what? I think Bob chimed in about how they went out of business, and that store, the website that I shared, it looks like they haven't been in business since last year. So the last store that was selling them maybe hasn't come back to life in 2020.
Well,
they were seasonal only.
A lot of things are not going to come back to life from this year. And I don't mean people. I'm not trying to be disrespectful of people. A lot of traditions and companies and things we know went out of business. Thank you, Bob, for looking that up. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
Oh, I'm so glad you all came tonight. This was fun. I always have fun. The Bloomingdale folks are always amazing cooks with great stories. You guys put me to shame. I might be able to find the recipes, but I can't do much more than my cornflake cookies.
You know what? I have to try those now. I have never had a cornflake cookie, and I'm intrigued.
Well, you'll be amazed. You'll be like, is this what she's talking about? Sometimes it's the tradition and the family fun more than it is the flavor. I think it's like Spam. Why else would people like it unless they remember it fondly?
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, have a good evening, everyone. And we'll see you around again sometime.